we're looking at chapter 3. Last two, we were looking at Luther, how his life changed, lightning bolt and the whole lot, got him to be a kind of a monk, studied the Bible, came across faith and what the Bible is saying, and looked at the church around him, the institution, the politics, the pressure, and he said, no, I'm going to follow the Bible, not that sort of stuff. And of course, chapter 3, that caused nothing but trouble. Trouble is the heading. No wonder when you start to follow your conscience, like so many things in politics, in social ways in which we interact with one another, if you have a conviction of something and you put it out there, well, there are a lot of people who think, nah, I don't want that. Or they'll try to squash you and get you out of the way so that they don't have to listen to that. Well, Luther was, I don't know what kind of character he was, but he wasn't going to shut up. He told everybody, and suddenly you had people from the Vatican coming over saying, got to get rid of this guy. They talked to the king, get rid of this guy. They talked to everybody else that they could, get rid of this guy. And in those days, when they talked about get rid of somebody, it wasn't just sort of like, let's put them into prison or something. Sometimes they burnt them at the stake. So the idea of when the Catholic Church was thinking, hey, look, this guy is a threat to us. Whoa, that was like putting your life on the line. This was like a conviction. Are you prepared to die for this? And Luther said, yep, I'm prepared. Because of God's word, I can't go back onto any of this. I've discovered something about God's word. I'm not going to go back on God. I'm going to live what God's word has told me, and that is going to be my truth. Not this other stuff, but he put his life on the line for that. In the video, I hope you've had a look at the video, because you can see that, because they tried to hunt him down, he had to escape, and he found refuge in some of the other princes who were thinking, this guy, not only has he got something like it, I want to hear more about it, but it was their way of getting away from the power of the Vatican. So these princes got together to say, hey, let's look after Luther, because this might be the way in which we can kind of like kick the powers out and we'll be in power. So they had other issues and other reasons for doing it, but it saved Luther's bacon. And you can read about this, especially in regards to the wise Frederick, or Frederick the Wise. You can read about all of that. And then when you flip over, you can see some of the strange cartoons over here. You look at that and you think, weird. But, see, they're trying to tell a story in one little caption. And this day and age was all about just getting the printing press going. They weren't sophisticated like you and me, doing all sorts of interesting things, PowerPoint productions and what have you. They just had one way of putting something together to try and get the message across. So you see, for instance, here, a monk with many different heads on it. Kind of like, I wonder what that means. You can have a look at that. Or some of these other ones that are actually clips out of little wood carvings that they use to try and get the message out. So you can have a look at all of this. And then you have this idea here, the bull and the bonfire. They were going to get rid of him by hook or by crook. And out of that you had, on this page, the Protestant action or the Protestant reaction. Do you know, you had the Catholics, and then you had this big group of people who protested against Vatican, against the Pope, against the powers, against that church politics. So this protest, it's interesting that Reformation is a protest movement, and the Catholics and the bishops and the Pope and so forth, they call these people the Protestants because they protested. Or they call them the Lutherans because they followed Luther. Luther actually didn't like either of those terms because they're kind of like, that wasn't what he was on about. He wasn't protesting against the politics. He was just saying, let's get back to what the Bible is saying. And he didn't want a church named after him. He just wanted to reform the church to get back to God's word and live from God's word and not these other things. So when we talk about ourselves as Lutherans, we're still actually honoring Luther by using that name, but he actually preferred the idea of evangelisch is the word, German word, meaning good news, as in the idea that, hey, we've got some good news to share with all the other people. So the evangelical church came about. So evangelisch. But the thing is that we now connect our idea of grace, faith, salvation, all of these things that we've got from Luther, not actually because he invented them, but because he pointed to the Bible and said, this is where it's at, and this is what's there for you. So we have this Reformation, or we're called Protestants, or we're called Lutherans, but really, bottom line is, we just want to get back to what the Bible is saying. So, don't stop investigating, turn over, and have a look at the question, what does that mean for you? What does the Bible mean for you? Is it just a book on a shelf? Or, like for Luther, it changed everything around. Have you read Romans yet? Go on, stop, pause, get the Bible out, have a look at the book of Romans, and find out why it would have been such an important book for Luther that changed everything. What in the chapters as you're reading it made a huge difference. I'll give you my favorite verse out of Romans, and if you read through it, you can stop at chapter 8, verse 1. Tell me, send me an email back, what do you think that verse means, maybe to you? Why do you think it might be a favorite of mine? And why was this verse also so significant for Luther? Tell me about it, send me an email. You can also send me your thoughts about questions and questions that you might have. And then, of course, your Faith 5 highs and lows. Don't forget a bit of a quiz at the end of the week.